at 10:02. And then before we get started, we're gonna do a quick safety moment.
Yeah, so at the Port of Alaska, anytime we have a meeting, we end up starting it off with a safety moment. And I think it's timely today, given the nature of what's happened as of yesterday with the port new construction starting to tear into T1. We are changing traffic patterns. It's different. It's going to be different. It's going to be a little bit of a challenge on the port for the next couple of years as we change traffic patterns to accommodate the construction. So as you're driving into the port and as you're driving out of the port, just please be aware and be thinking that things are changing. It's not the same as it was before. Stop signs are going to move, yield signs are going to move, traffic patterns will change. Just be aware that change is happening every day. And think about that when you're in your vehicle, your personal vehicle. Think about others who may not be thinking about the change. Watch for them, defensive driving. I think it's really important that we talk about this over the next couple of weeks because it's very, very dangerous out here right now with all the change. So that's my safety moment. Thank you, Jen.
Cool. All right. Anything else for that, guys? All right, let's move to the approval of the agenda. The agenda was distributed. Are there any changes or corrections to the agenda?
Not for me. Well, I guess we are going to change the agenda. We're not going to vote today.
Correct. I think we would just actually postpone it or table it.
Table it.
Yeah. So I don't think I'll actually change the agenda. We just move forward.
Okay.
So hearing no official changes, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
A motion to approve.
Second.
Yep.
We don't know.
You cannot. I was getting ready to politely correct you. Corey, you're it. Corey and Bert, you're it.
Yeah, second.
So just for everybody's awareness. Yeah, so I am learning that I am now the secretary of the PAB. And just so everybody, we were kind of joking about it in the room before everybody joined the call, but I'm going to learn these secretarial duties and the roles. We'll get a little bit better at how we push out the agendas and a little more timely. But also I won't be participating at the levels I thought I would be. So I'll try to sit back and be quiet, Jen.
You're good. You're good. I don't think this is as formal as we want it, you know, so.
Yeah.
We're good. All right, so the, all in favor of, I think I missed that, approval of the agenda, all in favor? Right, that might hear any. You guys have to speak. All right, motion carries.
So I have a question.
Hey, hi, Bert.
If we're not gonna vote on this, can we just reschedule the meeting then? Or I'm just
I have a presentation though, so there's some items that Eric has to present to the board.
okay.
Yeah, appreciate
Some
items to think about for the next meeting too, Brent.
Yeah.
For
Okay, thank you.
All right, moving on to the approval of the December 30th, 2025 meeting minutes. Those have been distributed as well. Has everyone had a chance to review them?
Yes.
Changes to the minutes? Right, hearing none. Do you have a motion to approve the minutes from December 30th, 2025?
Yes. Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Approving the minutes? All opposed or approving the minutes?
Approved.
Oh, what?
Come on, Ryan. I wasn't here.
Killing me.
People need some coffee. Yeah.
I know. And I'm the one that's the cold. All right, there's no old business. There are no correspondence. So first item of new business is the location of Matson Stevedore building, currently next to the POV. Eric, you're up with your presentation. Or whoever.
This is just a brief presentation of the document, kind of highlight high level of what we shared. So we'll just go through this really quick. Please stop me if you guys have any questions. I think there's going to be some requests for information and we'll be able to supply that after the meeting. So honored and worked. So share a copy of this. Yeah. Just agenda, just want to remind everybody, we gave the T1 construction notice. See, Terry brought it up in the safety moment. Just really want to be cautious and aware of what's going on, decision changing the stevedore building location. And then I have another presentation that John did for the PL2 repair work. Terminal 1 project notice to proceed was issued as March 16th as planned. Huge.
Oh, great.
Huge win. Thank all the stakeholders for proactively working with us. We're on a journey of the next 10 years for the cargo terminals 1 and 2, and appreciate everybody working with us on that. So things are moving pretty well, except that sea ice is probably going to stick around a little bit longer than we anticipated. Okay, so stevedore building. Current plan replaces each of the 2 buildings currently located on existing terminal 2 and existing terminal 3 with new buildings on the new terminal 1 and new terminal 2. So what does that mean? Basically, you have the buildings built, I think they're 1969 or 1972, around there.
Around there.
Stevedores, I believe use the one on terminal 2. I don't have an update on the terminal 3 one. But we're looking at replacing those into this program. And then discussion towards moving stevedore building from the valuable on-dock space to land. Again, actually a little bit before 2023, but it really began in earnest at that time. We did a multiple of design shreds and locations and trying to get them adjusted for siting. I think definitely we are now at the point where the terminal 1 stevedore building can be sited. The terminal 2 stevedore building on the new port will be decided. We'll locate that during the design phase of terminal 2, which, as I mentioned last week, we just kicked off the terminal 2 design of record last week. And so where that stevedore building is going to be located for terminal 2 will be figured out during the design process of that. But we'll come along again and everybody get together on that. So that's the existing plan. Proposal will build each of the building on the land instead of the dock. There is a slight increase of about 5.2 million, primarily due to the larger building footprint. A little bit about 2.5 times larger than what we see on the dock now. We're going to plan to use the design build delivery method, but also when we move that out there, we have the potential for removal of underground obstructions and contaminated materials, which drove some of that price up. We put a contingency factor in there. Obviously, if these buildings were residing on the new terminals, there would be no contamination on there. But all the life cycle cost, maintenance, heat trace, for the vendors that use those buildings out there, it's a challenge. To keep water going, keep everything functioning in those buildings just because it's cold, and trying to use restroom facilities. So moving them on land would mitigate a lot of those ongoing operational costs. For terminal 1, that stevedore building, the user that would be using that terminal 1 stevedore building is planned to be located near the new terminal 1 south trestle, basically adjacent to the POV. It is currently where part of MMJV's laydown yard is, but we'd be able to work around that and get that installed before the terminal 1 is completely operational in 2029 is the plan.
Eric, is there any insight onto the larger size where that request came from, or is there additional amenities included? What drove it to 2.5 times the size?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead and just comment openly right now.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I think there was a design shred that was done, Corey, on the size of the building and then kind of the new safety requirements. As you know, those buildings out on the terminal are outdated for space constraints and people using those buildings. And so there was a design shred that went through, basically came up with the concept of that. It is about 2.5 times larger. And recently, I think the request is to take another look at that and make sure it's actually the proper building size. This request came in earlier this morning, is the proper building size for future use going forward. So we did do a design shred, but that size of that building was requested to be, I guess, revalidated this morning, earlier before this meeting. And I think not speaking for the chair, but I think the request is gonna be postpone the vote on this until probably, I requested no longer than 3 months. But postpone it a month, probably 6 weeks, and come back again and vote on that. So that user can take a look at the building and make sure it's gonna fit their needs.
Eric, that was going to be my question, was when does this decision have to be made? And so it sounds like your answer to that question is not today. We do have some time before we have to decide on this recommendation, because I have some questions. I would also like to understand that why it has to be 2.5 times the size of the current facility. And then can you go back one slide just so I understand? We're moving them off the docks, and that's also making the anyway, so the cost increase is primarily due to not the dock move, but the larger building design build and the potential removal. I think I'd like more information on the merits of each of those changes and then what happens in the alternative, right? Like if we don't remove the underground obstructions and contaminated materials, and instead I assume the alternative is to seal them in place and build over them in some way. Or maybe that isn't an alternative. Maybe that's not a real choice. Maybe we have to remove them. I just would like to understand, like, are there toggles here that we get to make a choice that would potentially mitigate that $5.2 million cost increase? Is there a world where we build new buildings that are the same size as the current ones, and we don't do a design build and we just seal potential contamination in place because we acknowledge that the whole dang port is a big pile of contamination? Or do we have to do each of these things, and then why? So if we have 3 months in which to consider this, my request would be that we get some more information on those details to be able to support going back to the assembly with another cost increase that's multiple $1 million in scope.
Okay, I took the notes here, and we'll look into each of these items here and be able to provide that back.
Yeah, and I have a question on that too, just, so who is, the stevedores are the users, is that the user?
It's basically the users who use Terminal 1 and Terminal 2.
Terminal 1 and Terminal 2, and so it's their requirements that is going 2.5 times?
So it's been a couple years
Okay.
since we've actually even looked at this. So the details are a little foggy. I don't remember exactly what we asked for. I know at one point, I looked at the building, it's from the 60s, early 70s. It needed ADA compliance because it doesn't meet that. There was a bunch of things that it needed that we don't have right now. I honestly do not remember why it ended up being 2.5 times bigger. So I want to go back and look as well and refresh my memory as to, was it just a nice to have, or was it an absolute necessity for us to have?
Can I ask a question as a member of the public? Okay,
Yes, go for it.
there's a couple different nomenclatures we're using in here. Are we saying 2.5 times bigger than a concept to design, or 2.5 times bigger than that?
Okay,
Okay, because we're saying two different things, I think.
so if that's the case, yes, because I was gonna ask the next question, what are we actually talking about? Because if that's the case, that building is not adequate as it is right now. We have
Current plan.
people sitting
Yeah, you're not up to code.
all intermingled.
Not even close.
It's not even up to code. I mean, I will take you through a tour if you would like. It is,
We got to do a total review of this.
yeah.
It's just a little bit too old, I think. We got to refresh it all.
So if we're basing
The
our
right thing to do.
cost concept on a building that's from the 60s, I could see where we asked for 2.5 times. But again, I want to validate those numbers to ensure that that's actually what Matt has requested. I'm sorry, I barely remember my kids' names half the time. I cannot remember the conversations we had 2 years ago.
The one question that I have is the delta between having the utilities and all the upkeep and maintenance on the dock versus on land. You mentioned that there's a delta there, cost savings by putting it out on the upland side instead of on the dock.
Yeah.
Can we quantify it? Is it worth it?
I can go back and look at, I believe it might have been quantified, but the challenge that we run into right now is we are looking at using those spaces for the alternate fuel delivery. Where everybody here remembers we've talked about maybe it being on T1 or T2, and was still, there's multiple different options, right? There's 4 different options that we're looking at for that. And so if there was an alternative fuel delivery method placed on either Terminal 1 or Terminal 2, Then that bump out where the stevedore building would be going is current preliminary plans show all that stuff would tuck back into that area. And so it kind of negates, I mean, we'd have to add to the dock, which we could, but that would be additional cost.
Yeah, I don't wanna add, I don't wanna even have a concept of putting this back on the dock. I just wanna know the cost savings by putting it on the upper.
Pretty, I gotta go. Don't quote me, let me go back and check. I think there is one available. Yep.
It might be significant, and I think that's something to think about too.
Okay.
But I think that's the right course, guys, to reevaluate this whole thing, make sure we're doing the right thing.
Like I said, the information is dated, but it's 2 years old since we actually had a discussion about it, so.
Yeah.
Let's just make sure that we got 14 years ago.
Do we have can I ask you a really correlated question about meeting cadence and whether we then have the right meeting cadence to do that reevaluation? Because if we're meeting quarterly and we need to make this decision at the next meeting, do we need an intervening meeting to review that information, or like what do we, I just want to make sure we have the right, like I would like to have some time to review the information before immediately having to make a decision on this personally. But if we're on a quarterly cadence and then we're gonna table this today and then in 3 months pick it up with some additional information and a decision in the same day, I'm not sure that gives us that window. So I just want to flag also a potential process question of whether maybe we want to or at least circulate more information in advance for consideration, or potentially schedule a second meeting for discussion to make sure that we all have had a chance to walk through this again, since it sounds like we have many of the same questions and some dated conversations that involved people from prior leadership on many different parts of this, the apparatus of the players in the room before we get to a decision point here.
Yep, go ahead.
So Becky, I guess the PAB, not only just Becky, but let me pull some of this information together and share it out to the community. You know, the team members on the PAB, the questions that you asked, the toggles and those items. And I send that out in a general information and try and feed that to you. Try and provide that information to the PAB members over the next month, right? 4 to 6 weeks. I'm sure there's going to be multiple questions coming back, and then once everybody feels comfortable that their question's been answered, I think the PAB requires a week notice before we vote, before we meet, and then we can schedule that once all the users have had it, the PAB members have had a chance to get all their questions addressed.
So I would throw out there, Jim and I were talking yesterday about using Teams more and more and for groups. And I don't know how familiar everybody is with Teams, but this would be the perfect repository for any information within Teams that we could all go into this meeting invite. We can start a Teams page together. We should be able to keep this information coalesced in the right format, I think, so everybody can read it, even respond, have questions online through Teams. Is anybody against having a sort of a Teams page set up for the PAB and moving through it that way?
She's a
Barry, I
lot.
was thinking the same exact thing. And further to that, we could actually establish different groups for different topics and keep the chain alive and that way we would have this history of this discussion, and memory would serve on the Teams portal instead of our brains, right?
Would help. Bert, I'm gonna try to set that up for a myriad of different meetings that we've got. I appreciate you supporting it. Jim and then Eric.
Jim's got a question.
Yeah, and maybe Becky knows the answer to this, because this is a public meeting. We have something we have to do in terms of public documentation versus putting it on Teams.
Well, we can share the information on Teams, it's in the meeting, so
If once it's been presented in a meeting, if we put it out with the meeting packet, is that
Good enough. Does that cover?
I don't know the answer to that. Becky may know.
do you know the answer, Becky?
Wait, is your issue that if we have subsequent information related to items discussed in the meeting that we have and we don't notice it with the meeting, whether we have a Public Meetings Act violation? Is that the question?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that if we're using Teams to share information, we're not getting into a public disclosure problem.
I don't think we are. I mean, I think the reality is we are a public entity, so all that information that's on Teams is everything we do here is subject to the Public Records Act. if we discuss it in the context of the meeting, it should be circulated with the meeting materials and linked to the meeting itself. I assume that we're talking about, I do think it's probably good to separate the meeting invitations. This is like real wonky now, from a Teams infrastructure that addresses port related issues specifically for this reason, because the meetings are like noticed and public meetings and etc. And it seems like what we're really talking about is we should have like a Teams page for port information that the users are invited to be part of, and we can actually share information in real time, which would all be potentially requestable by the public pursuant to a Public Records Act request, but which was not expressly promulgated as part of the meeting invitations. But we can take that offline, and I don't feel like we need to have that wonky discussion about Title 190 of Municipal Code right here as a group.
Thank you.
I had can I ask one other question? Eric, can you give us, what's your drop dead date? I also want to make sure we have this in our minds, because I also feel like I know we had some, and I had this concern too, when we were confronted, like the last time when we had to make the decision about the location of the substation, and it felt like it has to happen tomorrow. And I would like to know, is it 3 months so we can prepare for the fact that, like, do we have to make the decision by 3 months and then work back from there to make sure we have enough information? Or is it 6 months? Or do we actually have a year to make this decision? Like, when's the drop dead date where we start hitting construction timeline issues or things that otherwise impact the project if we've not made this choice about the location of the Stevedore building?
The RFP should go out on the street about the September timeframe.
Okay,
And-
so we have,
Yeah.
so we don't really have 6 months because we have to draft the RFP before it hits the street, but we have probably 5 months or so before we actually hit the drop dead date of having this decision made. And that gives us at least the 3 month period for us to gather information, review the order of the bidding and how we got to where we are right now, and determine whether we're comfortable with the recommendation to make the $5 million change for the location change, or if there's different things we might as a body recommend. Yes?
Yeah, that's why I requested don't, it's up to the PAB, but no longer than 3 months on this. Because then it gives us time to go through the process of assembly, those items, and if there's any hiccups, it gives some buffer room, right? So that's why I requested, we provide all this information, and hopefully within 3 months, we can wrap this up.
Okay, I have one more question. Sorry, really pestery. Which I think is somewhat similar to Jen's question, which is, or maybe it's Dylan's question, which is, when we talk about the change, is it a change from an original design concept that had the building somewhere else and smaller and estimated at a smaller cost? Or is it a change from something else? And it's so the same concept we walked through with the electrical substation. Like, what's it a change from? And then why did we have it somewhere else, like estimated at a different location, a different amount originally?
Okay, I can provide that information, but the question that Dylan was referring to is 2.5 times the square foot size of the current 1970 buildings. The new Stevedore building, which if I assume that if the vendor that's going to use Terminal 1 has, say, 5,000 square foot building, that the vendor who uses Terminal 2 would also have the same 5,000 square foot building. And so those numbers are applied that vendor 1 and vendor 2 would have the same size buildings, square foot wise. And then we did a cost breakdown comparison compared to the admin building that we're sitting in now.
Can you go back one slide though, just for reference? Okay, because it just says buildings in the current plan, so that makes it sound like we're like we have a current plan that has cheaper buildings in it. That was my question.
Yeah, it was, when you're looking at the overall, the PAMP project, for Terminal 1, the Stevedore building was just a percentage used, for the smaller, to make it similar to what's on the current dock. And then this cost here is to do after the 35% design shred that we had with the vendor who uses Terminal 1. But I can pull that information together, Becky, and supply that to you.
Okay, perfect. That's helpful. Thank you.
I'll pull the toggles that you requested. You won't have it tomorrow. I need a couple weeks, pull it all together.
That's fine. If we have 5 months to make this decision, then we have some time to walk through it, and I appreciate it coming up now with more time for the group to consider it.
Yeah, and Becky, it's a great point because we talked about that at the very, very beginning of this meeting. The timeliness, setting up these meetings, the recurrence, making sure that the secretary's got the agendas pushed out correctly, giving everybody enough time to actually review these important documents so that we can vote appropriately. So that's part of my commitment to this group too.
5.2 million, is that one building?
It's an increase overall, assuming that building for terminal 1 and terminal 2 are the same size. Same concept.
That amount. It's not any buildings.
No, it's
Oh, okay.
for both buildings, it's an increase.
All right,
Two.
so that's the total.
Two buildings,
I just wanna
correct. Two buildings.
4.1 and 4.6.
Yeah.
Which I'm assuming is time value of money is the difference.
Yeah, you have, terminal 1 building is the midpoint of construction of terminal 1. And then we use an adjustment inflation factor of 3% to get to the midpoint of terminal 2 construction.
So you think costs are just going to continue to rise year over year?
Well,
He's being sarcastic here.
He's getting used to
The
me.
CPI, it was 2.1 per acre recently, but we used just a flat 3% because we've seen it 12, we've seen it, you guys know, you guys are in the supply business.
Standard is 3% as well.
So,
Okay, good. Any more discussion on this? Eric, do you have more for us on this?
no, I do have the PL 2.
So just real quick, just as formality, let's table this until we can get the information that's been requested by, the team. And then we'll discuss it at the next meeting.
And I will send out links to the team's page, make sure that everybody's aware of what we're doing, where the information can be deposited.
Perfect. Okay.
Reposited.
All right, Eric, back to you. Next item is the PL2 update.
Hey, this is John. I'm just gonna run the slide for him.
Okay, so I was asked to provide a brief kind of a status informational update, if you will, on POL2. Some of this, first part of this slideshow is just the problem statement, reminding folks of what the issue is, and then at the end, I'll talk a little bit about where we are in terms of dealing with it. So, what happened is there was a series of issues that added together caused concern, any one of which we could sort of tolerate, but you take them all together and you sort of pile on and pretty soon you have a big concern. So the issues are the cranes, the rubber fenders, the fender piles, main dock piles, CP system, and then we had a concrete bent pile cap that was damaged. Slide, please. So there's a picture of the crane. Parts of it are actually bent, slightly bent, one of the rams, and it's kind of exceeded its service life. Next slide, please. So the fenders, it's hard to see in this picture, but there's cylindrical rubber fenders on the face there, and there's many of them that are missing. Next slide. The piles, this was a fender pile that's buckled and severely corroded. Next slide, please. There's a close-up of the pin piles on the bottom left there, and then you see the missing rubber element. There's a little piece of what it's supposed to look like at the top there. Next slide, please. And there's pile jackets. If you can see at the bottom, they're kind of peeing out water, if you will. What happens is they get a corrosion hole in the weld seam. At high tide, water seeps into the pile and fills the interior of the pile with water. And then when the tide goes out, the water leaks back out of the pile. So it's a visual indicator where there's a hole. And most of those are in the welds due to weld corrosion. Next slide, please. There's a close-up of the weld corrosion. Next slide, please. And then this was from the cathodic protection survey. So there's 5 or 6 anode sleds. The 2 or the 3 green ones, I guess, are working. The other ones are not. And the survey shows, they take a potential reading and it basically shows the electrical field that the anode is producing. And the survey shows the green area is adequately protected, the red area is not. So there's a significant amount, probably half of the dock, that's not getting adequate cathodic protection. So that was identified as a problem as well. Next slide, please.
Do you all know what cathodic protection is for these docks? Everybody aware? Okay, I had to learn it.
I've learned, but I know what it is now.
Yep,
Black magic.
really important stuff.
Yeah.
Can we interrupt with questions?
Go ahead, Bert.
Yeah, what is the plan on getting that fixed?
Well, that's at the end of this slide.
Okay.
So the first part of this is sort of the problem statement, and then the last part is to talk about where we're at. So this is a concrete pile cap that's on the approach trestle, and that was discovered last year. Pretty severe corrosion in a couple places. Next slide, please. That's a close-up of the corrosion at the bottom of the pile cap. Next slide, please.
That's all rebar.
Yeah. So, you know, a lot of small problems, and then we've identified in the phasing of the PAMP that POL2 is a critical piece of infrastructure. Shortly here in another month or two, we'll be taking POL1 out of service, demolishing it. So that will leave us with 2 POL docks, POL2 and PCT. And so we need to do something to keep it in service for the next 10 years until we replace it. We've got repair costs now are estimated around $10 million to do the work that we. Next slide, please. So these are action items, Bert, that we are taking to deal with these problems. We had a load rating and condition assessment study done. It's not 100% done, but it's mostly done. The load rating is talking about what kind of crane we can bring out there. We've got a little bit more work to do on that. The condition assessment listed a prioritized list of items that need to be repaired. The total work there was about $180,000. We have begun work on pile jackets. That's to go over the corroded pile. We expect the final design to be done by the end of April, bid it this year. Total cost for those pile jackets is $2.8 million. We've started to work on designing the pile cap repair. The final design should be done in the middle of May, and we're expecting the construction cost to be $750,000. The rubber fenders, actually the parts are here. We've just this week finally got the last piece of steel parts. The rubber elements, cylindrical rubber elements have been here for a while, and the fasteners just arrived. Swalling has a contract to do that work. We're waiting on weather now. Honestly, we're a little disappointed that it's taken this long. We wanted to finish it last year, and it's just been hard to get the parts and the contractor all coordinated, but the only excuse we have left now is the weather. It's all frozen out there and they can't really work in the ice.
John, just a follow up to that, what does it take? It's not are we talking the June timeframe or are we talking May?
I put down there April, but I don't know.
For the rubber fenders? You think
They're
April's
here.
legitimate, even
All the
though-
parts are here, and Swalling just needs to do it.
So even that April, you think with the weather, even what we've got right now, you think April's the real.
Maybe by the end of April.
End of April. Okay, I just want to be real open and honest with everybody on the call.
Does it need to be ice free? Is that what we're waiting for?
Yeah,
It
mostly
does.
ice free, yeah.
Yeah,
I know it's a dumb question, but just making
No.
sure I ask.
nothing's dumb here at the board.
Then the other piece that's underway is the hose tower and crane. That was put out to bid. The engineer's estimate was pretty low, 300 something thousand, and it came in at 7 or 8. There's 2 pieces. There's a new crane, and then there's some retrofitting of the hose tower, the structure that the crane goes on. So we're trying to figure out how to rebid that work. Anticipated cost would be around 900,000 for that. Next slide. So here's a couple of pictures. This is the pile jacket design from the preliminary design. There's a picture of POL2, a plan view at the top and an elevation at the bottom that shows where the pile jackets will go. Next slide. The plans are coming along pretty well. Here's a detail of the pile jacket. It's a 3-piece steel pile jacket that will go around the corroded section of the pile with grout in the annulus in between. Next slide. So here's a detail from the pile cap repair for POL2, and that's the corroded concrete. The clouded areas where they demolish or cut out some of the bad concrete and a corroded rebar and replace it. Honestly, we're having a little bit of a challenge and discussions about how to do that because the corrosion's so bad that you kind of, if you removed all the bad corrosion, you have no rebar left in the bottom of the structure. It could fall up in under its own weight. You don't want to cut it all away and have the thing.
I don't find it funny.
That's not funny.
Bad humor.
I'm sorry, I can't help myself, but that's an honest, the first detail came back, said cut it all out and replace it. And then the light bulb came on, well, if you cut it all out, it might fall in. So we're dealing with that now. There's a couple of options for that, but Michael Baker is designing that now. You're right, it's not funny. So there you go. We got to get my kick somehow.
Engineers are strange.
Next slide. So Bert, this is what's left to do. The items that we just talked about are underway. We're hopeful that we can get that work done this year. Those items that we just went over. These are the items that we have not dealt with yet that are on our list. So the fender panels, we're going to replace the rubber elements, but the fender panels, the steel panels behind it and some of the piles need to be fixed. That's a more in-depth repair of the fender system. We haven't started that. The CP system, we've identified it as a project. We've got a cost associated with it, but we haven't started that yet. We're going to probably go out to bid for those upper two items. There's a number of electrical system items, including a capstan that needs some work and a few other things. We haven't started on that. And because of all this, we think we're going to need some additional inspections as we go forward. So we haven't done that. So these are items that we haven't started on. And I think that's the last slide. That's just a status of where we are trying to do on PL2.
Any questions?
Yeah, this is Bert. So I just want to make sure, because I always do this, how critical POL2 is to the airport. It's like, it's above critical. I don't know whatever word is 10 times critical. You can just put that in there. And I'm going to ask a non-engineering question. You said that the pilings were leaking out of the holes. I'm assuming that if you did x-rays, you could tell if there's any corrosion on the inside of the pilings. And then are you guys taking steps to plug those holes?
So the corrosion's quite a topic, and I've been involved with it for a long time, and I don't claim to have all the answers. As a matter of fact, the more you dig into it, sometimes the more questions you have. But most of the corrosion, the really bad stuff, is associated with the welds. So the welds corrode preferentially to the base steel. That's why you see them on those spiral welds. Most of it's exterior, by far greater on the outside than on the inside, and it's this phenomena called accelerated low water corrosion. It's difficult or impossible to repair the welds because they're underwater, and the quality of an underwater weld is not great, nor and it's also expensive. So the repair is to put a jacket over it, a steel jacket over the outside, and pump it full of grout. That's the primary repair method, and that's fairly sound, but that's the best we can do. And then the other thing is to increase the cathodic protection so that we reduce the corrosion rate. That's pretty much everything I know.
Anything else, Bert?
Yeah, just what's the timeline for resolving the cathodic protection?
As I said in the presentation, we haven't solved that yet. I'd like to go out for RFP this year for that, get it designed and installed next year. It's fairly expensive. We need probably 3 new sleds and some rectifiers, and each sled is close to $1 million. So it's just shy of $3 million worth of work to get that going.
John, is there any of this that can be utilized for future facilities, like the crane, some of the cathodic protection? Because I'm assuming the life on that is longer than 10 years for a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, unfortunately, not a lot. The crane, maybe there's some alternative use for that because it would be fairly new. The cost for the crane itself is somewhere around $350,000 for just the equipment. And that may be salvageable if it's fairly new. The cathodic protection, not so much. Once the anode sleds are in and started, they're very difficult and expensive to remove. The rectifiers you could repurpose, and we're doing that in some cases, the power source.
I'll just throw out a comment. Really appreciative that you're on this team, having your marine experience and knowing what to go look at. Asking for these inspections is really great. This is some forward thinking stuff and I really appreciate it, John. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? Right, hearing none, we can move on to public comments. Are there any public comments? Mr. Favor? Okay. All right, hearing none. On to next meeting date. We have had the discussion earlier about meeting before.
We want to do a TBD on this and just sort of maybe get everybody's consensus in, say, 4 weeks,
When we
2
get-
to 4, when we get a little bit of information coming in and the team are set up.
Yeah, let's check back in 4 weeks. That way we give Eric adequate time to get the information that's been asked for before we set a date.
And I'll just
My
work with-
only counterpoint to that would be, at least my calendar fills if there's nothing holding a spot. So I wonder if we might like hold a spot and cancel it if we don't need it. If we think we might want to, I think we should set our quarterly meeting regardless. So we have it set and then maybe hold an hour on a Monday in between. I know this is accommodating my ridiculous schedule, maybe more than other people need to be, but it definitely, like, my calendar will fill if left to its own devices. So it's helpful for me to have an hour reserved if we think we might need it and then cancel, as opposed to trying to find an hour spontaneously.
As backup to this,
If we
I've
decide
seen.
in a month we need a week.
Yeah,
Mine's the same.
we totally get it. Yes, you are not wrong.
You have I have the same problem, Becky. I already have meetings into July. So,
Yeah.
right now, so 3 months from now would put us, what's today? Today is 17th. So the 3rd week of June, which I am actually not available the whole week, or the 4th week. So the only date I'm available is the 2nd week of June.
That's fine.
Anybody have conflicts with the 8th through the 12th of June?
No, actually, that works best for me.
Oh, perfect.
We have a soccer tournament somewhere.
June 9th at 10 a.m.
Sounds good.
All right, so we will tentatively schedule June 9th as a placeholder at 10 a.m. Subject to change, should we need to.
June 9th to 10th.
Yes.
Sure.
I'll send out an invite. It's Colette's
And-
birthday.
And then do we want to hold a time sometime in advance for further work on through the history of the Stevedore building decision, just in case we need it, like to reserve something where are we now, right now, the middle of March, maybe sometime in May to walk
Let's
through
do
some of that
second
history.
week of May. Yeah, second week
Okay.
of May, I think would be good.
2nd week of May, I'm good on the.
Send it out because.
Well,
Perfect. And then we can boot it if we don't need it, but just in case we need the time to get through that material together with questions, we have an hour reserved. So Jen and I don't have to schedule it out till next year.
Yeah.
That works for
The
me.
12th works for me. The day after that, I leave for a basketball tournament for my child.
Sorry, what is that second?
May 12th. It's just as a placeholder to do a work session to go through
May 12th, at what time?
I think just stick with 10 a.m. Does that work for everybody? That seems to be our
That's fine.
consistent time. Okay. Mr. Secretary, do you have all that?
Yeah, I think I'm back in town. I was checking my schedule.
Okay.
So May 12th, 10 a.m.
Yep.
Got it.
Okay. Anything else? Meetings. Right. Do we, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I will motion to adjourn.
A second.
So,
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Faster next time, Corey. Thanks for joining. Thanks for
guys.
coming online,
Thanks,
guys. Appreciate you. Be
Yeah,
safe today.
Thanks.
Night.
Night. His daughter's birthday.
Glen's birthday.
Really?
Yeah.
You'll be at soccer tournament that.
No.
Was it 10 a.m. again? Okay.
Figure 10 a.m. just be consistent.
Yep.